So hello, so I'm Miriam, and I'd just like to introduce myself first. So I've worked and supported people with learning disabilities and Down syndrome for actually over 40 years, in a variety of settings. So I've also particularly supported people with a learning disability actually in a residential setting that have Down syndrome. Have gone on to develop dementia in their 30s, and so now I coordinate and sort of oversee the work of the Shalom Groups. And so today I'm going to share just a little bit about a new project that we are actually sort of planning on running at the beginning of 2022, subject to the COVID regulations, of course. And this project is funded by the Forest of Dean District Council Community Grant. So, the aims of this sort of project are sort of educate and reach out to local communities, sort of within the Forest of Dean area, and basically to actually enable them to understand and and support people with learning disabilities and Down syndrome. That do have dementia, or could develop dementia in the future. And we also sort of aim to work alongside actually individuals and sort of families to actually increase sort of their understanding as to how dementia can affect them now and in the future. One of the key things that we'd like to do within this sort of pilot sort of project is to work alongside people sort of Down syndrome to actually, in fact, to actually help themselves to actually reduce their risks of developing dementia as they get older. And sort of through that, we actually aim to actually sort of produce a course that actually people can attend. And sort of through that, we'll sort of educate them to understand what dementia is and sort of how they can actually use what they've learned to actually put into a plan of action to change their lifestyles, and sort of enable them to take sort of something away that is actually pictorial to remind them, to remind themselves as to what they need to do daily. Just actually taking a wider view of dementia, to begin with, just actually looking at the global impact of dementia. There is a sort of currently around sort of 50 million people that have got dementia in the world right now, which is a significant proportion of the population. And the rates of dementia, in fact, actually show show a projected potential sort of increase to actually 82 million so by the year 2030, and 152 million by the year 2050, which in effect is actually 3 times more than there is now, which is quite a frightening sort of statistic to consider. And much of this increase is also attributable to the rising numbers of people sort of living with dementia in low and sort of middle income countries. So actually, what is dementia? Dementia sort of is an umbrella term that describes a number of conditions of the brain. There is not just one sort of condition called dementia, and dementia is actually progressive and terminal. And there's common types of dementia that include Alzheimer's disease and actually Lewy body dementia, Pick's disease, sort of vascular multi-infarct dementia, and sort of frontal lobe dementia. Each type of dementia, in fact, actually affects each person in an individual and different way. So what is the connection between actually Down syndrome and Alzheimer's disease? Well, in fact, actually many people, but not all people that have got Down syndrome, that sort of will go on to develop actually Alzheimer's disease actually when they get older. People with Down syndrome are born, in fact, with an extra copy of the chromosome 21, which also actually carries a gene that produces a specific protein, which is called, sort of amyloid, the sort of precursor protein, sort of known as APP for short. And actually too much of this protein actually leads up to a buildup of sort of protein clumps called beta sort of amyloid sort of plaques in the brain. And actually the presence of these plaques is one of the hallmarks of sort of Alzheimer's disease. And actually by the age of 40, actually most people with Down syndrome will have these plaques, are sort of alongside actually other protein deposits. And sort of estimates actually suggest that 50% or more people with Down syndrome will develop a sort of dementia sort of due to Alzheimer's disease as they age. And sort of fortunately, actually, this is not genetical and passed down the family line. So actually, why is there a need to this sort of project? Well, because people are actually living longer and have got an increased life expectancy. We're becoming, aware and beginning to learn about conditions of which they're susceptible, of which actually one is dementia. And basically anybody with a learning disability may get a form of dementia, but sort of people with Down syndrome are particularly vulnerable at a much earlier age. And just to take sort of just stop to pause there, that actually people with Down syndrome actually 3 people, 1 in 3 people with Down syndrome will actually develop dementia in their 50s, and actually for people in their 60s, then this increases to 2 in 3. And whilst actually other people with learning disabilities, can be affected sort of by dementia, in fact, actually much earlier than those without a learning disability, the risk is much higher for people with Down syndrome. And there are a number of risk factors. Actually for actually developing Alzheimer's disease, of which actually include sort of diabetes or high blood pressure, midlife obesity, sort of depression, smoking, sort of physical inactivity and low sort of educational attainment. Also actually hearing loss and social isolation, which actually these can actually potentially, so if addressed, actually can help to reduce and sort of delay the risk of sort of the deterioration process. And I must admit, actually, when you pause to think of what we've gone through in the last year during the lockdowns and the effects of the pandemic, then actually the risk of socialization increasing sort of that risk factor in this people group is much higher, and actually we'll see the sort of the effects of, in fact, what we've lived through in this last year, the sort of in the months to come, as actually things begin to lift and actually get back to the more normal sort of way of life, because actually socialisation sort of has affected actually many people across society, but it has also particularly affected the sort of those people with a learning disability. So who can benefit from this project? Well, the project is aimed sort of for the communities and the people who are living in the Forest of Dean. So the aim is that they, in fact, come to understand sort of what dementia is and how to include people with additional needs, so that are sort of either living with dementia, or could be affected by dementia in the future. And actually, secondly, we aim to actually run a course pitched for people with learning disabilities and Down syndrome, to attend alongside their sort of significant carer, whether that be a parent or support worker. And we're looking to make connections with the sort of within the community. We're looking for people that can help us to make those new connections within the Forest of Dean communities. And we're also looking to connect with professionals and carers that are interested in fact actually into inputting into how we deliver this project, and sort of looking for people to actually signpost us to signpost us to people that would benefit actually from this project. So actually, if you know of people that sort of would actually benefit from this, then please do get in contact with us. The details at the end of this presentation. So actually, how can you be involved? Just to recap, you can be involved by actually being involved and actually helping us make those connections and reaching out to people that actually don't access any other service than perhaps their GP, and actually raise awareness of the project amongst your contacts, friends or professional contacts, and people that do actually live with Down syndrome or additional needs, and also their families. But so if you're really interested and would like to actually volunteer and work alongside me, then actually please do get in contact, because we are looking for people to actually work alongside me to deliver the workshops at the beginning of next year. And so what's actually involved in the course workshops? Well, the workshops will contain the 3 separate sessions spread out over 3 weeks. And we will give actually people priority that do have actually Down syndrome, although that's not exclusive. They will be considered first because of the risk and the nature of their condition and dementia. The workshops will have 12 places, and actually 6 of those places will actually be for people with Down syndrome or an additional need, alongside a place for each person to bring alongside them to support them, actually either whether that's a carer or a care agency support worker, basically so they can work actually together as to how, in fact, the things that they learn in that course time actually can be applied in their daily lives and their daily settings. The courses, the actual workshops will be interactive, actually very much so, and so we plan on using a simplified version of the Let's Talk Dementia board game, which has been produced by the Forest of Dean District Council. And each of the sessions will consist of looking at what dementia is, looking at how the risk can be reduced, or delayed by by living a healthier lifestyle, and sort of how to put what has been learned into action. What has been learned to be put into an action plan that will be pictorial, so they can take away and that they can remind themselves as to what they've actually planned to do to make a difference in their daily lives. Some of the content will also be looking at those sort of major sort of risk factors, also which include the diabetes, the high blood pressure, obesity, so the need to be physically active, smoking, sort of hearing loss. How to actually minimize the potential for sort of socialization. How to keep the brain active, to actually keep connections. How to avoid sort of depression and try to stop smoking. And actually, when and where all of these courses be held. Also, we're aiming to start these at the beginning of next year, in actually January 2020, and potentially they will run through till next March. And we're hoping that they will run in the Colford, sort of Sinford, and sort of Lydney areas. So again, how can you get involved? Again, you can be involved by helping us to make the connections, to reach out into the community. You can raise awareness of this sort of project amongst your contacts. And so if you want to sort of practically get involved, you can volunteer to work alongside myself to deliver the workshops. And these are my contact details if you'd like to get in touch with me. That includes my sort of email and my phone number.